Greetings and salutations all, Lydia here back with another video for you today. In today's video, this episode of Lydia's Library, I'll be speaking with you about and sharing with you sections from Missing 411 North America and Beyond. This book is by David Paulides. I think I'm pronouncing that right, could be wrong. Got a picture of him here and a picture of the book cover and also the website. So just to give you a little background, the author was a police officer at one time. He had gone to some national parks and it was shared with him that there was, one might say, an epidemic of missing people in national parks. And so what he did is he compiled these stories, and it reads almost like a police report, and you actually, of course I'll be reading some of these to you. I really appreciate this. It's not, of course I love the long drawn out narrative as much as the next person. This is just kind of a really interesting study, and I will say I ran across him when I was into looking at UFOs and things like that, and this he speaks about Bigfoot and alien abductions, and this was before I came to the realization that those were all demonic manifestations, and that's what I believe today. And I don't think that that discredits in any way the research he's done. He actually does not draw any conclusions about what happened to the people. What you'll see is that he's put together these stories and basically, well, according to the police report, according to this newspaper article, this is the date, this is the time, this is the age of the person at the disappearance. Like I said, just kind of reads like a police report. He does sometimes add a little bit of flavor in the summary section, but I mean, it's really just the facts, as they say. So anyway, I had run across him and some of these interviews, and so I thought I would buy one of his books. This particular book, I don't think this was the first one. I think this is the second of the Missing 411 series, because this one in particular contained a story about the Smoky Mountains and also Ohio. His other book primarily focuses on the West Coast, on California and Seattle. I believe he's from California. Which makes sense why he would focus on that area. But of course, for me, since I live in Kentucky, I'm more interested in the eastern side. Just from being interested. I don't think any of these were in Kentucky, but there were some in Ohio. There were some in Tennessee. So anyway, yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting. It's I don't know. It's I was going to do my next review of 1984, and I was planning to read it on vacation and just had too much fun and did not do any reading at all. I think I read maybe the first couple chapters and that was it. But I've read this a few times, and I think you'll find it interesting. Not well known, I don't think. So I thought before I get started, though, I just wanted to go to his page here, Can-Am Project, and I'll have the link in the description. This is the Canada North America Missing Project, so you can just see they have information on each of his books. I've only ever only ever bought and read the one, but you can get other ones as well if you're interested in Bigfoot, if you're interested in alien abductions. This is certainly something that you would probably really enjoy. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just read a few sections here. I'm not really going to put up any graphics, but I don't think. So I'll just read a couple of my favorite stories. And this book is, as you can probably hear, I'm flipping through the pages. There's about 440 pages of actual story text. There's a few pictures included of some of the missing people. Usually photographs probably from the police report or from the newspaper article, but mostly it's all text for the most part. Okay, so I'll just read some of the most interesting ones, at least for me, some of the ones that I was like, wow, what? Yeah, if you're interested, you can visit his website, buy the book. I think when I bought it, I looked at Amazon, I looked at his website, and it was considerably cheaper at the time on his website. So if you use Amazon, more power to you. I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon, but this particularly I would recommend going directly to his website. Okay, go to the first story here. The first story that I'll read, or the first incident, I guess you would say, is from page 89 of the book. There are no chapters because it's just each of these. There are some sections based on the location. So this is in the Western California Central Sierra section, I believe. Yeah, but it's on page 89 if you go there. So, okay. California Sequoia National Park. Sequoia National Park is a new cluster located just south of Yosemite. When he says cluster, he has, because he had done the previous book, he had kind of mapped out where the different missing incidents happened, and he identified some patterns. So there may be other references. Some of the patterns that, just off the top of my head, I haven't freshened up on the book. I had already earmarked some of the stories that I thought were interesting, so I thought, oh, I can just flip. This will be a quick video, just flip to them. But there are some common themes that people disappear. The people that disappear are usually too young to be able to speak, so if they are recovered, they can't really describe it, or sometimes they're old or have a disability. When children disappear, if they are found, they're found uphill. If people are not found, or even sometimes when they are found, they're missing their shoes, and then he, like you said, he did these clusters where he's looking at the different places. So if other terms like that come up during the story, I'll try to stop and explain, but it would be very, I'm not going to read the whole introduction and everything. I think we can just kind of wing it. Okay, so picking back up. Located just south of Yosemite and in the same Sierra Nevada mountain range, it contains some of the highest mountains in the western United States. Evolution Valley is located inside the park and has a series of names associated with the evolution of life, a very beautiful and pristine region without significant hiking pressure. The park employs a series of outback rangers that live in remote regions of the park during the summer months and monitor these distant areas. Name, Andrew Thackerson, 817. Oh, so these are going to be the names I'm reading. He also, when he identifies the location, he'll include several stories of people that went missing if there was more than one person. So in this particular case, there were 4 different people that there were missing reports of: Andrew Thackerson, Amy Jackson, Irene Hofka, and David Holtz. Andrew Thackerson disappeared 8/17 of 1953 at 5 a.m. in he was male. Amy Jackson disappeared 8/13/66 in the evening. She was 18 months. I think I said AM. He was 5. So Andrew disappeared in the morning. He was 5 years old. Amy disappeared in the evening. She was 18 months old and female. Irene Hofka disappeared 7/3/69 at 1 p.m. She was 9 and female. David Holtz disappeared 7/13/71 at 9 a.m. He was 9 and male. So you're like, yeah, of course David's male. I'm just reading because straight across the line it has like .9.m. So anyway, so Andrew Thackerson, age of disappearance 5 years old. On August 17, 1953, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Thackerson from Norwalk, California, took their 3 boys, Talmadge, age 9, Roger, age 7, and Andrew, age 5, and their daughter, Muddy, age 2, on a 3-day camping trip to Sequoia National Park. One of the family's first stops was at one of the oldest living things in the world, the General Sherman giant sequoia, which is 2,000 years old. The family parked its vehicle and exited. They were admiring the giant trees when they noticed that as rapidly as they had exited the car, Andrew had vanished. The family quickly searched the parking lot and could not find the boy. Not long after Andrew went missing, authorities were notified. The parking lot where the Thackersons were parked sits just to the west of an extremely remote region of dozens of old lakes and miles of exposed granite. Pausing here for my own commentary, exposed granite is one of the trends, I guess you would say, a correlating factor that he's found in these disappearances. Picking back up, Sequoia National Park is very famous for being the location of one of the largest searches in the history of the National Park Service, the search for the lost ranger Randy Morganson. Morganson was a longtime backcountry ranger that disappeared under highly unusual circumstances. The Park Service pulled out all resources to find him. Randy was eventually found in a very unusual location under extremely odd circumstances. Author Eric Blim wrote an amazing story about Randy, his life, and the NPS search the last season. Rather than recount the peculiarities of Randy's disappearance and how he was found, I'll advise you to pick up Eric's book. I kept meaning to do that, I never did. The circumstances of where Randy was found are just as unusual as any disappearance I have described in my 3 Missing 411 books. The details we found in the Park Service's report related to Randy's disappearance are baffling. National Park officials pulled 100 men to scour the immediate area where Andrew Thackerson was lost. California Highway Patrol raced to the Thackerson home and retrieved clothing to bring to the scene so bloodhounds could have scent to track the boy. According to Lost Person Behavior by Robert Coaster, a 5-year-old boy will be found 95% of the time in a distance of 5 miles or less from the point they were last seen. Almost all children will walk downhill from the point they were lost, but as you will see in many of these stories, this may not be as common as search manuals state. Almost 24 hours after Andrew disappeared, 3 teams of bloodhounds were scattered throughout the region, all supplied with Andrew's scent. Ranger Carl Kronberg was alone and 6 miles from the parking lot when he came across a horrible scene. Andrew was lying face down and motionless on a mountain trail far from all other searchers. Carl picked the boy up and did get some reaction. On August 19, 1953, article in the Long Beach Press-Telegram had the following statement about the discovery of Andrew. The boy was found about 6 miles from where he had disappeared. Rangers said that he apparently had walked some 12 to 18 miles through the woods. These are very rugged mountains, not hills and not meadows. Mountains. I don't think most adults could travel 12 to 18 miles in a 24-hour period, yet we are led to believe that a 5-year-old boy who has never been to this location can. I do not believe I could hike 18 miles in those mountains in 24 hours. Andrew Thackerson was transported to the hospital and found to be in satisfactory condition. He was later released. I could not find any articles or reports that had a statement from Andrew. So that's Andrew's story. I think I'll go ahead and read Amy's story also. Amy Jackson, who disappeared in the same location, because I'm not sure if I was earmarking, I think I was earmarking Andrew's story, but I'll read Amy's story as well. Amy Jackson, missing 8/13/66 in the evening, Deer Creek Campground, Sequoia National Park, age of disappearance 18 months. Amy Jackson and her parents traveled from their residence in Upland, California to the Deer Park Campgrounds in Sequoia National Park for a weekend of camping. The family arrived on Saturday, August 13th, and quickly established camp. After the family had eaten and relaxed, they entered their tent and went to sleep. Sometime during the night, little Amy left her parents' tent without being heard and somehow walked into the darkness. Her parents didn't hear her leave the tent, and they had no explanation how she could have done this. The National Park Police were called, and they quickly sent out bloodhounds and aerial support to look for Amy. I'm sure that the searchers were thinking what I was when I researched this case. How far can an 18-month-old really walk in the mountains? That's not cool. I'm just going to pause here. My son is 2, and I think that's, maybe I did mark this because if you have a child or a child in your life, I mean, try to think of them at 18 months when you're hearing this story. It's kind of crazy. At the end of the first day of searching, commanders were so disturbed by not finding any evidence of where the girl was located and the bloodhound's inability to pick up a scent that the National Park Service didn't call their own special agents. They called the FBI for assistance. The FBI summoned additional helicopters, ground searchers, equestrians, and volunteers, all looking for the young girl. The search and rescue was occurring approximately 25 miles east of Porterville at the 7,000-foot elevation. The Tulare County Sheriff had also asked the FBI for assistance, as they couldn't find a trace of the girl, and the story the parents continued to tell seemed implausible at the time. 3 years later, almost the same scenario played out again in the same park. I get chills when I read some of this. Imagine almost 400 searchers scouring the campsite and surrounding area and not finding any trace of an 18-month-old girl. Couple the lack of evidence with bloodhounds scouring the scene and failing to pick up a scent. Law enforcement was perplexed. On the 4th day of the search, a Kern County Special Rescue Team made a disturbing discovery, as is explained in the August 18, 1966 article in the Arizona Republic. A crack Kern County Special Rescue Team found the 18-month-old girl's body at the base of a large rock uphill from the Deer Creek campground. The same article also states the body of little Amy Jackson was found yesterday about 0.8 of a mile from where she disappeared, 4 days earlier at a campground in the rugged Sierras north of here. Now you probably understand why the Kern County Sheriff had called the FBI. A little 18-month-old girl disappeared at night from a tent, searchers and bloodhounds find nothing, and the family states they never heard her leave. The search is probably covering everything downhill because that's where 90% of all children go when they are missing. I don't believe that anyone truly believed a girl as young as Amy could walk uphill that far in a rugged region in the middle of the night at that elevation and with chilly temperatures. The implication of the find was that she might have died from a fall from a boulder, meaning she actually walked even farther, or she died of exposure. Many of the articles I reviewed state that the sheriff believed the girl may have been kidnapped, thus the call to the FBI. Well, maybe she really was. Several articles stated that a 3-mile radius around the camp had been searched prior to the finding of the body, and nothing suspicious was found. Typical result of many of these cases. It would be useless to file a Freedom of Information Act request with the FBI regarding this case, since they never release any information on an open case. I believe this incident is highly suspicious, especially coupled with the other cases cited in this chapter. In my past Missing 401 books, I have repeatedly stated that I believe the FBI has a very large file cabinet with cases that feature unusual circumstances and unusual findings, as in this case. I've relayed many stories of where the FBI responds and states they are just monitoring the case. Many times they claim there is no evidence of abduction, yet local law enforcement believes a kidnapping has happened. FBI agents are masters of documentation and then sending those files for classification. Files regarding the unusual disappearances of missing children do exist. Alright, so then we're going to skip over to Kenneth Candrall. This is going to start on page 128. He was missing 3/13 of 1916 at 6 p.m. in Shepherd, Montana. Age of disappearance 2.5 years, so just a little younger than my son, actually. I don't know, do I want to read this? Sometimes I was thinking that I only earmarked the ones where the children were found alive, because it's very sad. Oh, you know what? This wasn't the one I was going to read anyway. It was Murray Walkup Miller, missing 10/24/36. Yeah. In the Sapphire Mountains, Montana. Age of disappearance 9 years. Okay. And this is 129. The Sapphire Mountains are considered some of the roughest mountains in all of Montana. They start in an area of Missoula and continue 60 miles south to just east of the Idaho border. Oh. This is an area where there exists a cluster of missing people, as is identified in Missing 411, Western United States. On Saturday, October 24, 1936, 9-year-old Murray Miller was with his stepfather and brother in an area of the Sapphire Mountains cutting firewood. The stepfather asked Murray and his brother to walk to a nearby creek and get a pail of water. The boys got to the creek. Murray filled the pail and started to walk back with his brother. The boys traveled a short distance, and then Murray spilled the water and had to go back and fill it again. The second time Murray walked back alone, and he never returned. Murray's stepfather called the boy's name and searched for him until he felt that there was no hope without getting assistance. The sheriff and state police were called and soon had dozens of searchers on scene. An October 26 article in the Reading Eagle had this description of the search. Nearly 500 men, including 125 soldiers from Fort Missoula, searched the mountains in the Burnt Fork region, where a lad said by Sheriff James Olivia to be Murray Miller, 9, was reported lost. Searchers kept a dozen bonfires burning all night in hope of attracting the boy after about 300 men had failed in yesterday's hunt. Searchers failed to find Murray after a 4-day non-stop search. On Wednesday, the 5th day Murray was missing, 2 United States Forest Service employees were walking near a creek in the Bitterroot Forest, not far from the lookout tower. An October 29, 1936 article in the Salt Lake Tribune had this description of finding Murray. It was only an accident that we found the child, Daigle said. I was going up Rock Creek with Charles Lear when we noticed a boy across the creek. We called him, but he couldn't hear us. He finally waved his arm, and Lear waded the stream and brought him back. Lear and Daigle were not at Rock Creek looking for the boy. They were there on another assignment. Murray told the rangers and his family an interesting story. He stated that the second time he was bringing the pail of water back, he couldn't tell where he was. He stated that he kept walking and was lost. When found, Murray was extremely tired and semi-conscious. The Billings Gazette article of October 29, 1936, had the following description of where Murray was found. Murray, the son of Mr. and Mrs. Ray Miller of Stevensville, Montana, had wandered 15 miles from where he left his stepfather last Saturday. The mountain range in which he was lost is considered the roughest part of the West. There was never any mention of what Murray was wearing when he disappeared or where he was found. According to the book Lost Persons Behavior by Robert Coaster, a child 7 to 9 years of age will be found at a distance of 7 miles or less from the point they were last seen in 95% of the instances. Murray was found over 2 times the distance quoted in the Coaster book. He was not only twice the distance, but also twice the distance in some of the roughest country in the West. But that's not the only important information. Remember the statement from the United States Forest Service employees that found Murray. He was found in close proximity to a fire tower, meaning he was near the summit of one of the tallest mountains in the area. After 15 miles of hiking, we are led to believe that Murray Miller then decided to hike up a mountain, an unbelievable feat. Okay, and this summary is the reason I marked it, because it's very interesting. Summary. After I completed the first 2 missing 411 books, I received hundreds of emails from people who had experienced or had similar experiences to those I have described in the books. One of these stories dealt with a man and his brother that lived in a southern state. The man stated that he had lived on the family property for a lifetime, working the ranch and walking the property thousands of times. The man explained that one afternoon he and his brother had gone out onto the property looking for lost cows. They traveled on the property to an area near a large river and suddenly felt very uncomfortable. Things around them went quiet, and they suddenly didn't recognize anything around them. Remember, this was their property they had known for a lifetime. They continued to walk and still could not recognize a river or the area they were walking. He stated it was frightening. Eventually sounds started to come back, and they walked through an area of heavy foliage and started to hear their dad calling their names. He stated that it appeared they had been only 100 yards from their ranch house, but couldn't hear anything. Their father stated that he had fired 3 shots trying to help them find their way back. The boys had heard nothing. He stated that this has never happened to him since, and nobody on the ranch has ever experienced something similar. As I read Murray's description of walking back towards his stepfather for the second time, and his statement that he didn't recognize where he was, it reminded me of the story above. And he's, of course, referring to the Murray Miller story. Uh-oh, lost my place. Oh, don't you hate when that happens? It also makes me wonder how many times others in the wild have experienced a similar situation and not realized what the rangers did at the time. The ranger stated that he feels he and his brother walked through some type of time warp tunnel or portal, as they were definitely in some other place and lost for a period of time. In an agreement not to expose the ranger's identity, I won't name him or the location where the incident occurred. Think about how many of the other cases I've written about in other books, and imagine how many of those instances people have described similar circumstances. It's frightening. Yes, it is. Makes me glad I don't live on a ranch. Okay, so this one that I marked, I don't know if I just left, I might have just marked this because it was in Ohio, which is fine. I'll read this one. I don't know that it's exceptional. There's like 2 more stories that I want to read. I'll read the one from the Smoky Mountains too because that one is very interesting. So we'll read this one first. So, daughter of King, 8/19/1859. She was 6, female, Kalida, Ohio. This incident occurred 4 miles from the city of Kalida, Ohio. Kalida sits in the far northeastern section of the state and has 4 major rivers within 3 miles of the city limits. Kalida is 30 miles southwest of Toledo. On August 18, 1859, Mrs. King and her 6-year-old daughter took a trip 4 miles from their home to an area outside of Kalida to visit a neighbor. The King daughter accompanied the neighbor's daughter as they were to carry water to her father, who was working in a nearby field. There was some type of disagreement among the children, and the King daughter decided to return to the home rather than continue into the field. Other children stated that the home was in view when the King child turned to walk back. After a short time, the other children returned to the home and found that the King girl never made it back to the residence. All members of both families searched for the 6-year-old through the first night. At the end of the first night, more searchers were summoned. Search parties continued to look for the King girl for 9 days. What was found on the 9th day was described in a September 2, 1859 article in the Daily National Intelligencer. On the 9th day, the little one was found lying over 2 logs where it had fallen, too weak to proceed, within 2 miles of the spot where it was last seen, dead. It had removed all its clothing, and when found was quite naked. Later in the same article was also this: it had died within a few hours of the time in which it was found. The spot had frequently been passed, but the most of the search had been extended too far. The King girl disappeared under very unusual circumstances. She was at another person's property and in an area where she was not familiar. People searched for 9 days, yet the girl never called out to anyone, and she never responded to anyone's calls to her. She had removed her clothing and was found naked. Another twist that seems to be a very common theme in missing children cases: the girl was found draped over a log. The article stated that she had died within hours of being found, a highly unusual coincidence, especially since the area where she was found had been searched many times in the past. And this just happened to be the time she was found, after she had just supposedly died. This is one of the earliest cases I have found to contain many of the common elements that are found in cases of children disappearing. And I'll just read the one from the Smoky Mountains next, and then end it there because it's already been 20 minutes. And really, it's very long. Like I said, 400 pages, but just so interesting, really. And there's another story in here, but I'm not going to read it too, of a girl that was found alive. Those are my favorites. And she was found in an area where they had searched, holding hands and walking across it. I think it was in a southern state, maybe like Louisiana. And then she was found, 20 feet from where somebody would have had to have been within just a few feet of where she was found. I should have just looked it up and read it, because now I'm babbling. Anyway, it's, I mean, that's kind of incredible. They walked right by the spot where that girl was found draped over the 2 logs, and, it's just, very interesting, isn't it? So I'll find the story with the Smoky Mountains and then close it out here. So this is on page 211 of the book, Naomi Lee Wyden, missing 11/25/94, 12:45 p.m., Chattahoochee National Forest, Georgia, age of disappearance 2 years. It's actually listed in the Tennessee section, though, and it says because of its proximity to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Okay. I don't think this is one I thought, but that's okay. This case is listed in the Tennessee chapter because of its proximity to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The location that Naomi Wyden disappeared is north of Dahlonega, Georgia, in the Chattahoochee National Forest, and 60 miles southwest of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a location where other children have vanished. On November 25, 1994, Dwayne Wyden was with his son, age 6, and 2 daughters, ages 4 and 2, when they drove to the base of a large mountain in the Chattahoochee National Forest. Dwayne parked the car at the bottom of an old logging trail that winds uphill from the parking area. Dwayne and the kids hiked approximately 1.5 miles up the trail and into the wilderness. Dwayne was interviewed by officials and asked to explain what happened in the woods. On November 28, 1994, in the Atlanta Constitution, an article appeared with Dwayne's explanation of what happened. They, the kids, were in my full view, my sight and hearing, and then she was gone. Later in the article, Dwayne stated he was looking for animal signs when his daughter vanished. There were no other explanations I could find about how quickly this disappearance took place. Naomi Wyden had simply vanished. Law enforcement officers brought bloodhounds and additional search teams from surrounding counties to search for Naomi. Teams went deep into the first night looking for the girl and calling her name. There was no response. Approximately 25 hours after Naomi disappeared, a search team led by Kip Clayton was at the outer fringe of the search area when something told him to continue out another 250 yards and look for the lost girl. Kip walked up next to a large log and looked down, finding Naomi face down in wet mud and leaves and not moving. He picked the girl up and heard a moan. Her temperature was dangerously low. He ran back to the command post with the girl in his arms, a distance of approximately 1 mile. Naomi Wyden was transported to a local hospital in critical condition in a semi-conscious state, suffering from exposure. She eventually made a strong comeback and survived. Like I said, love those stories. Summary. Many questions come to mind when analyzing this case. Searchers were close enough to Naomi to have her hear their yelling for her the previous night. Why didn't she respond? Why was she lying face down in the mud and not leaning or lying in a dry location or up against a tree or log? Readers should make a special note that this is in close proximity to the Smoky Mountains and the disappearance of several children near the same age as Naomi. Readers start to remember the number of times you read about a child being found face down on the ground. If the child had fallen to that position, they would incur mouth, nose, and facial injuries. Those are never noted when the subject is found by the rescuer. So, as I said, I don't want to continue to drone on too much. I do really recommend this book. I think it's incredibly interesting. I mean, some of these children that are found, miles and miles away, uphill. I mean, there's a story about a boy who's found in a ledge that is described as barely big enough for an eagle's nest. And there's stories about somebody who was an experienced hiker going missing, and then they find his shoes and just little pieces of body parts. So some of it's a bit gruesome, maybe not for... I'm actually kind of a wimp when it comes to stuff like that, and I could stomach it. But I guess if you're very much of the faint of heart, probably not for you. And this is what it comes down to for me, is that if when we go to national parks, and like I said, we go to the Smoky Mountains quite frequently because it's just beautiful and it's a great place to go. And we also have some parks here close by that are not as expansive or beautiful, but nonetheless they are a bit wild. So it comes to this for me, and the author recommends this as well, is that if you go, never go alone. Keep, if possible, use a GPS tracker. I mean, everybody has that on their phone now, but, where you can do I know for us, we can do some kind of family locator on our phones, so we can always find each other. I don't know if it's turned on or not, because I think it's a little creepy, but if we're going to National Park, I would turn it on, to bring a compass with you and a map of the area in case your electronics fail, and just simple, safety tips, like radios, if your cell phones don't work, and the handheld radios, walkie-talkies, right? So anyway, it's maybe more of a Halloween time book, because these are some very creepy stories, but they're all true. He is an excellent researcher, and I think the only reason I didn't get the other books was because you really, after you read, so many, you see the trends, and it just gets kind of sad, so, some of these, and then others of them are, like the men who, turn around and they're on their family property and now all of a sudden they don't know where they are. I mean, it just really makes you think. And, I have to say, I definitely believe in the supernatural. And I just love this book because it's so straightforward and right to the point. But it definitely indicates that there is more out there that we don't understand. And, bad things too that we don't fully understand. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, I have kind of eclectic taste, so this may not be for everyone, but I certainly enjoyed it, and I should maybe read through this again and then go through and pick out some even better ones, because I definitely could do that. Okay, so until next time, thanks for watching.